The Executive Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, unveiled on Monday a document that evidences ExxonMobil's lobbying efforts against oil subsidiaries in the Latin American nation. In Palestine, the people of Gaza condemn Israel's decision to cut off the electricity supply in the territory. China's tariffs on U.S. agricultural goods go into effect on Monday in response to recent fees set by Washington. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The Executive Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, unveiled on Monday a document that evidences ExxonMobil's lobbying efforts against oil subsidiaries in the Latin American nation. In her remarks, Rodriguez informed that ExxonMobil paid a lobbyist to have Chevron expelled from Venezuela. Furthermore, the high official denounced how the company has been conspiring against the nation for over a decade in complicity with the government of Guyana, seeking to undermine its economic stability. In this regard, the Executive Vice President stressed that Guyana is not a victim, but a protagonist who has been playing its role against the Bolivarian nation. In addition, Vice President Rodriguez condemned the unilateral coercive measures imposed against the country with the aim of affect the oil sector, in spite of the negative consequences they would have on the Venezuelan population. Rodriguez also denounced the involvement of the opposition in this matter, which has done everything possible to damage the country's economy and stability.
These ideologists produced a document. That is this document. What was the purpose of this document? To influence the decision makers and the authorities of the United States administration in order to say that more sanctions not only, obviously, cause great economic suffering in the population, but also generate possibilities of regime change. If you see here, because they refer to something that is a lie, they say that a period of humanitarian measures in favor of Venezuela in the years 2016, 2020, 74% of the unilateral coercive measures against Venezuela are concentrated.
Likewise, the Venezuelan Vice President denounced that in the event of any threat against any state authority, they will hold the U.S. company ExxonMobil responsible.
They are asking for more internal political pressure, more internal political pressure. What are they referring to? The coup d'etat? They are trying, incessantly, they are trying, they have already tried, they are trying to undermine the territorial integrity of Venezuela, they have already tried. I denounce responsibly that if something happens to a high authority of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, I hold the ExxonMobil directly responsible for the plans it has against Venezuela.
Moreover, Rodriguez denounced that ExxonMobil paid to get Chevron oil company out of Venezuela.
It is a strategy paid by ExxonMobil. There is the evidence. Here it is. It is said by a former minister of Guyana. It is not said by President Nicolas Maduro, the Vice President, Diosdado Cabello, Jorge Rodriguez. No. It is said by the former minister who was the one who managed and negotiated the contract with ExxonMobil, who says there how he was paid, what he was paid for, and this document, in fact, to withdraw licenses to transnational companies, among them the most important one, an American company, Chevron, which has been in Venezuela for more than 100 years. This document was made by the same ideologists who intend to attack Venezuela in order to steal the oil that belongs to Venezuelans. The president has said it, this is a shot in the foot, this step taken by the United States is a shot in the foot.
In other news, in Honduras, presidential pre-candidates Rizzi Moncada, Salvador Nasralla, and Nasri Asfura declared themselves as the winners of the primary elections in their respective parties. To this moment, the National Electoral Council of Honduras continues the vote counting as the three main political organizations, which are the Libre, the National Party, and the Liberal Party, decide their candidates. More than 5.8 million Hondurans were summoned to vote this Sunday in elections marked by technological advances and a continued process of democratic recovery after the country was submerged in a deep social crisis. The winning presidential pre-candidates in this first contest will face each other in the general elections of November 30th, 2025, when the country will choose its next president, deputies, and mayors. Several Panamanian unions have been picketing to reject the Social Security Fund bill passed by the National Assembly. In this context, the People United for Life Alliance announced the governmental plans to take over the entity's funds to privatize them with an individual system, which was the proposal of the popular movement. Likewise, the alliance denounced legislators' maneuvers in their attempt to both raise the retirement age and offer lower pensions that are far from being profitable. In addition, social movements warned that they had a list of over 15 possible sources where funds could be siphoned from the state. The 69th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women kicked off on Monday at the United Nations headquarters in New York to focus on gender equality and empowerment. The session, which will take place until March 21st, will review the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action and assess the challenges affecting its implementation. In the past, the Commission has addressed challenges such as climate change, gender-based violence, and the need to ensure women's full participation in decision-making and development strategies. Previous meetings led to a consensus on solutions to end women's poverty, ranging from investing in policies and programs to address gender inequalities. We have a first short break coming up. First, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Palestine, the people of Gaza condemn Israel's decision to cut off the electricity supply in the territory. The event occurred on Sunday night after the Israeli State Minister of Energy, Eli Cohen, ordered the suspension of the electric power service in the Palestinian enclave. The announcement of the power cut coincides with the release of documents revealing that the Zionist regime's intentions to intensify its illegal military operations in Gaza. Various humanitarian agencies have stated that the disruption of power supply severely damages essential infrastructure in the territory and could have devastating consequences.
We sleep without electricity, wash our clothes by hand, cook with wood, and there is no gas for cooking. Now our lives depend on wood, fire, and candles. We went back to 50 years ago to using candles.
Israel cut off electricity since the beginning of the war and announced cutting off water and electricity to the Gaza Strip. Consequently, we have been living without electricity for more than 15 months since Israel declared war on Gaza. The alternative is a generator in the street. There is no other alternative and the cost is high.
And an Israeli NGO condemned as collective punishment for Palestinians this cut off electricity supply to Gaza.
The desalination facility in Deir el-Balach was providing 18,000 cubic meters of water before the cutoff of electricity. So last night the electricity was shut off and the plant stopped functioning. Today it's expected to start running on backup generators and will be able to provide only 2,500 cubic meters of water. Israel is saying that it's cutting off the supply as a form of pressure, as a tactic to press Hamas to continue in phase one of the ceasefire arrangement to release more hostages. From Gisha's perspective, this is collective punishment, the stopping of humanitarian aid, the deliberate stopping of supply of electricity, of water, of medicine to the civilian population amounts to a war crime. It is Israel's obligation to supply these things to the civilian population.
And the Hamas-Palestinian resistance movement confirmed that several talks have been held with the U.S. on the ceasefire deal in Qatar. The senior Hamas leader told the U.S. delegation that they do not oppose the release of prisoners. Lately, Israel had reported to be preparing for negotiations, so that it sent Monday a delegation to Doha to discuss on the deal. Overall, the conversations aim at moving to the next stage of the deal, which could pave the way for ending the war. However, the first phase of the ceasefire deal ended past week. Since then, Israel has imposed a full siege on all humanitarian aid entering Palestine. The United States claims to expect substantial progress in Ukraine talks to be held in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. It has been stated by Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff on Monday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is said to arrive in the kingdom, while the U.S. delegation made up of Witkoff and Secretary of State Marco Rubio hopes to close mineral deals as well as move forward in a peace agreement and ceasefire. For his part, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has stated that what the U.S. and everyone are waiting for is a definite sign of Ukraine's desire for peace. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced that USAID will cancel the majority of its programs. In his X account, Rubio stated that after a 6-week review, they are officially canceling 83% of programs at USAID. According to the U.S. diplomat, the 5,200 contracts that are now canceled spend tens of billions of dollars in ways that did not serve the core national interests of the United States. He also added that in consultation with Congress, they intend for the remaining 18% of programs they are keeping to now be administered more effectively under the State Department. The USAID agency was created in 1961 to distribute humanitarian aid through international programs in 120 countries. Also in the United States, 5 people were injured after a small plane crashed in the parking lot of a retirement community in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. The accident occurred at about 3:18 p.m. local time when the plane, a single-engine Beechcraft Bonanza, crashed in the Bethlehem Village retirement community in Manheim Township, said Scott Little, leader of the department, on Sunday night. He also detailed that 5 people aboard the aircraft were injured and were taken to local hospitals. About a dozen vehicles were damaged in the incident, while the building of the retirement center was not structurally damaged and no injuries were reported on the ground.
A small 6-seater aircraft, a Beechcraft Bonanza, crashed here on the property of Brethren Village. 5 passengers were on board. All 5 passengers were transported by local EMS agencies to local hospitals for treatment. No structural damage occurred on the Brethren Village property. We did have multiple vehicles catch on fire due to the aircraft.
We now have our second short break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, where you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In China, new tariffs on U.S. agricultural goods going into effect this Monday, a measure imposed in response to recent fees set by Washington against Chinese products. Precisely, the Asian nation will apply a 15% tax on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, while goods such as soybeans, pork, beef, fruit, and dairy products will be subject to a 10% tariff. In this context, the Chinese government assured that the current trade situation between the two countries is the result of market dynamics and not of a deliberate intention by the country to generate a trade deficit in the United States. Trade with China has historically allowed the U.S. to import quality products at lower cost, benefiting consumers and fostering job creation in several sectors. Vatican authorities informed that Pope Francis' condition remained stable after a quiet Sunday night. In addition, the press office of the Holy See underscored the Pope's case complexity and its reserved prognosis, but stated the pontiff continues with his treatment and has resumed his respiratory and motor therapies. They also informed a rosary will be held on Monday to pray for the Pope's health. Furthermore, they unveiled the pontiff was briefed on the floods in Argentina and expressed closeness and prayers to the people affected. Meanwhile, in the northeastern Upper Nile state of South Sudan, clashes broke out between forces allied to the President Salva Kiir and First Vice President Riek Machar, posing a threat to the 2018 governmental alliance. Last week, an armed youth militia attacked the Sudanese armed forces, from which the police arrested 2 government ministers and a deputy army chief allied to Machar. In this context, a UN helicopter was shot Friday amid a rescue mission, killing a crew member. In response to the incident, the chair of the UN Commission on Human Rights in the country, Jasmine Suka, urged for peace, as she warned the nation was at the brink of a civil war. Meanwhile, the U.S. administration withdrew Sunday all its non-emergency staff from South Sudan amid the ongoing confrontations. And Gabon's interim president Brice Oligui Nguema will face 3 challengers in presidential polls, which are set to take place on April 12th. The official list was published by the Interior Minister on Sunday, including his main challenger, Alain-Claude Bilibaitse. In addition to the former executive of the Gabonese Democratic Party, Dr. Stéphane Germain Iloko, and lawyer and tax inspector Joseph Lapensi Isigon, 19 others were rejected, but given 72 hours in which to lodge an appeal with the Constitutional Court. Nguema came to power in a 2023 military coup that ended the long-standing rule of his predecessor, Ali Bongo, and his family. All 4 are running as independents, with campaigning scheduled to begin on March 29th. Internationally acclaimed South African playwright and actor Athol Fugard died on Sunday at age 92. Fugard was widely known as an anti-apartheid figure and left behind a powerful legacy of works like Master Harold and the Boys and Sis We Bansi is Dead, works that have shaped theater in the African country. The South African government confirmed his death by stating that the nation had lost one of its greatest literary and theatrical icons. President Cyril Ramaphosa described him as the moral conscience of a generation.
You know, during the 40 years of apartheid, I was a very blinkered writer. I had one focus, which was to try and say as much as I could about that terrible system and what it was doing to people. Now, of course, that is past history. And the captain's tiger, I suppose, represents an attempt on my side to use the new freedoms that are there for us artists in the new South Africa.
Basic drive in human nature. Oh, you.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.